Do we need nuclear energy to stop climate change? In recent years, more and more voices from science, environmental protection, and the media have been claiming so. However, this shocks many who oppose nuclear energy and fight against its problems. So who's right? Well, it's complicated. To curb climate change, we need to reduce the net emissions of greenhouse gases worldwide to zero. In 2018, 3/4 of global greenhouse gas emissions came from energy production, namely from the combustion of fossil fuels. Energy here refers to everything, such as the transportation of goods and people, the manufacturing of various items, and the heating of our homes. Currently, 84% of global primary energy comes from fossil fuels, 33% oil, 27% coal, and 24% gas. We burn about 10% of the world's oil supply in boilers to keep our homes cozy. Low-emission sources account for only about 16% of global energy. Almost 7% is hydroelectric power, and only 5% comes from solar, wind, biowave, tidal energy, and geothermal. Just over 4% comes from nuclear energy. Our civilization is highly dependent on coal, oil, and gas, making it tough to move away from them. Can we do it without catapulting humanity back to the Stone Age? Our best chance lies in electrifying as many sectors as possible. Electricity is what magically flows from our sockets, allowing you to watch this video, for example. So, every industry that can utilize electricity instead of burning fossil fuels should do so, be it electric cars or heaters. But why focus on electricity? Because we can produce it with low greenhouse gas emissions using solar, wind, and also nuclear energy. Electricity is thus a vital tool in a drastic shift. However, there are challenges. Firstly, electricity is still primarily generated from fossil fuels worldwide. And in the last 20 years, global electricity consumption has increased by 73%. So despite our rapid expansion of renewables, we're burning more and more fossil fuels for electricity each year. Until now, renewables haven't caught up with the demand, causing our emissions from electricity production to still rise. Another alternative to fossil fuels is nuclear energy. While it's not renewable, it emits far fewer greenhouse gases than burning stuff. Yet, the expansion of nuclear energy has stagnated globally in the past 2 decades. Countries like China, India, and South Korea are building new reactors, while Germany and Japan are taking theirs offline. This seems odd, considering that countries with the lowest emission electricity primarily rely on 2 sources, nuclear and hydroelectric power. Take France and Sweden, for example. In France, only about 10% of electricity comes from fossil fuels. 67% comes from nuclear and 23% comes from renewables, mainly hydro. In Sweden, nearly 30% is from nuclear and about 45% from hydro. Although not everything goes smoothly with nuclear energy in France, many reactors are old and more susceptible to malfunctions. Some even have to be shut down in summer because the cooling water return would heat the rivers too much. However, it shows us that nuclear can work on a large scale. Due to a lack of investment and innovation in the past decades, most of the world's nuclear power plants use old technologies. Replacing them or building new ones would be expensive, especially in most Western countries, due to a lack of expertise, political changes, or increasing regulatory constraints. Hence, it can take 10 years or more to build a plant. In contrast, countries like South Korea, China, India, or Russia can construct new nuclear reactors relatively quickly and cheaply. In general, the construction and operation of the latest generation of nuclear power plants in the West cost more than most renewable sources. However, bigger concerns arise from the risks of accidents and nuclear waste. After Fukushima and Chernobyl, fears are understandable. Still, the threat from a nuclear accident is far lower than the guaranteed consequences of climate change if we continue to use more fossil fuels. Similarly, while nuclear waste emits radioactive radiation for hundreds of thousands of years, none of the solutions for reprocessing and final storage is entirely satisfactory. However, the threat from the waste can be locally contained, whereas CO2 emissions from fossil fuels globally cause up to 4 million premature deaths every year. There are plans for nuclear reactors that, according to their proponents, solve many of these problems, such as smaller reactors that are faster and cheaper to build. Additionally, new technologies can turn radioactive waste into new fuel. However, these aren't yet widely used enough to have a significant impact on the nuclear sector. Given these uncertainties, some say nuclear power is a dangerous relic of the past, and we should focus solely on renewables. Yet, even if renewables are undoubtedly the future of electricity production, they face challenges before they can cover most of the grid. The main problems are reliability and consistency. The wind doesn't blow continuously, and the sun doesn't always shine, especially in the mornings and evenings when we need electricity the most. Seasonal variations make this even harder. For renewables to be dependable and avoid power outages, we need vast storage capacities to store energy when the sun and wind provide it at peak times. Until then, other sources must supply a controllable amount of power to ensure the reliability our civilization relies on. Eventually, renewables will suffice, but we'll need a lot of batteries or storage power plants for that. Currently, we lack the technology and capacity to replace fossil fuels quickly enough. Even if we could, there's another point to consider. We don't just want to produce electricity without fossil fuels, we want to meet our entire energy demand with electricity. When we electrify sectors currently using fossil fuels, like cars or heaters, we'll need significantly more electricity globally. And if the world's electricity demand continues to grow as in the past 20 years, we'll need even more. Each has specific issues. Both renewables and nuclear need time, money, and technological innovation. Neither can replace fossil fuels in our current power supply, even if activists on both sides claim so. Ultimately, we have to decide how to address these challenges. Do we phase out nuclear power plants immediately and temporarily accept higher emissions? Do we try to keep current nuclear power plants alive until we've addressed the shortcomings of renewables? Or should we invest in new nuclear technology so that plants are cheaper and safer? Or maybe a combination of both? Here's our opinion. Given the dangers of climate change to the environment and humanity, we should use any technology that can contribute to the solution. It's simply good risk management and a sensible strategy. If we want to halt climate change as quickly as possible, perhaps we should see nuclear and renewable energies not as adversaries, but as partners. Time is of the essence, so all low-emission technologies should collaborate. As things stand, both nuclear and renewables need innovation and investment. But since we don't know which technology will be ready when, why not invest in both and see what happens? And regarding current capacities, if we shut down nuclear plants globally, we'll need to replace the missing energy, at least partly, with fossil fuels. Even if new nuclear reactors in the West are more expensive in the long run, it might still be cheaper if it prevents more fossil fuels from being burned and the consequences of climate change from becoming costlier. So, do we need nuclear energy? Well, it depends on how hard we want to make it for ourselves.